FTSE 100 has closed up 68 at 74.80. The pound buys $1.30 and €1.18. And LBC weather. Wintry showers in the north and west tonight, staying cold and windy across the UK with some icy patches, a low of -1. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Thomas Watts.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, this morning the National Security Council met to talk about whether Huawei would be involved in the expansion and growth of our 5G network. I think I've been predicting over the course of the last few days, very cynically, you might think, that of course they would get the go-ahead in some way. Why? Well, I think the establishment are very much in the pay of the Chinese. Yes, I really do. I'm talking about former senior civil servants, former bosses of big multinational companies, and even a former prime minister who acts officially as an interlocutor between the British and Chinese government. So I wasn't in the least bit surprised by the decision that we got. It did come with some qualifications, but be in no doubt, despite the fact that Australia and New Zealand and Canada, and in particular America, think this is an absolutely crazy idea. They think we are risking our national security, and they're questioning the extent to which they want to share data with us. Still, it has gone ahead. Ben Kentish, LBC's Westminster correspondent. We got an official response, Ben, to this from Dominic Raab.
We speaking in the House of Commons, he outlined the government's reasoning for that decision. Now, ministers are making two arguments to defend the decision to allow Huawei to take part in constructing those networks. Firstly, that it's safe, that excluding that Chinese company from the core of the network means that crucial data will be protected. Secondly, because this is absolutely crucial in terms of rolling out 5G to the UK economy. It was a key pledge of Boris Johnson's in the general election to roll out full fibre broadband, and they say they had no real choice, really, given there are so few companies that are able to help construct those networks, than to let Huawei go ahead. Now, we can listen to Dominic Raab speaking earlier this afternoon in the House of Commons.
Nothing in this review affects this country's ability to share highly sensitive intelligence data over highly secure networks, both within the UK and with our partners.
Now, that doesn't mean that has not been enough to convince many Conservative MPs. Dominic Raab faced with a barrage of criticism, really, from his own backbenchers. Ian Duncan-Smith, former Tory leader, saying it was deeply regrettable. Penny Mordaunt, the former Defence Secretary, also voicing her opposition. And Tom Tugendhat, who's standing again to be the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee in the House of Commons, also raising serious concerns. So there is a real worry about this amongst Conservative MPs. And I don't think it's fair to say, Nigel, this is the last we'll hear of it.
No, absolutely. But at the moment, of course, because the National Security Council has great power and makes these decisions, I mean, there's no proposal for a vote on this in the House of Commons, is there?
Well, it will be enshrined in legislation down the line, but it is largely, as you say, kind of symbolic. This has been issued as a guidance to the telecoms companies today by GCHQ, the UK's government sort of communications hub. So, no, there's no real vote. The National Security Council made that decision this morning after a 6-month review by the security services. And I think that gave cover, really, to ministers to make the decision that they made, because the argument that we've been hearing from the government is our security chiefs, other officials in MI5 and GCHQ, have assured us that this is effectively safe with the conditions that we've laid out, and therefore we're comfortable going ahead. So that gives Boris Johnson the political cover in a sense. It wasn't a cabinet decision, it was a National Security Council decision. And I think that will be, part of his argument when he is trying to justify that to international allies, including the US, which of course has real concerns about this.
No, Ben, thank you. Well, they can say what they like about intelligence chiefs. Sir Richard Dearlove, former MI5 boss, thinks that it is a mistake, and the qualification is that Huawei will be excluded from the core functions. They'll just be involved in the peripheral functions, and they'll only be allowed to have 35% of that. Oh, and they won't be able to operate in sensitive geographical areas, such as around nuclear power stations. I thought the Chinese were actually building one of our nuclear power stations, but never mind. That's what they say. Seems to me that either you're in the network or you're not in the network. And listen, I'm not a technical expert, but people have told me that with 5G, this concept of core and periphery doesn't really properly exist. What do the Americans think? Well, yep, the White House have said they are disappointed by the decision. Other Republicans speaking out far more strongly. Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney said, Mr. Johnson has chosen the surveillance state over the special relationship. And I would suggest that's a pretty tough comment. As Ben Kentish said, we've got Conservative MPs like Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, others really, really unhappy, incredulous that this decision has been reached. What does it mean for future trade deals with Australia, with America, with Canada, with New Zealand? Have we put our national security at risk? Or is this the right option? Because 35% of the network being in the hands of Huawei actually will save the taxpayer money. What do you think? Do you think the government has made the right decision? I think it's made a catastrophic decision. I think to throw sand in the eyes of our best allies in the world who are giving us sincere, genuine advice doesn't make sense. I don't trust the Chinese state one little bit. We know they steal all sorts of patents, all sorts of ideas. We know this particular firm has been indicted by the US Congress for misbehavior in the past. I think it's madness, but I think it's all dominated by money. The establishment want to make money once they've retired from their official jobs. That is how cynical I am. Tell me if I've got this wrong on 03456060973. And Jason texts me and says, it's a monumental mistake. I assume the government was there to look after the security of its citizens. Jason, so had I. Tad on YouTube says, far better to have trusted allies and partners in this atmosphere. China is still a communist country. That's right, Tad, a communist country with an appalling human rights record. And whilst we may buy and sell lots of goods with them, I don't think we could call it an ally in any situation at all. Well, you know what I think. Let's find out what you think. What does Roger in Windsor think? Roger, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I hope you're well.
I'm pretty well. I'm here in Brussels. It's my last ever day in the European Parliament tomorrow. So I'm in pretty good form. But I don't like this decision, Roger. I think it's crackers.
I think it's absolutely disastrous. And listening to Liz Truss earlier, there were two things which struck me particularly. One was, she said there was no alternative. Well, what happened to Ericsson, who said they could roll it out for us at the same time?
Yep.
European telecoms company. That was the first point. The second point was she was talking about the ability to secure it from a security services point of view. But as you just pointed out, and this was the point I was going to make, is that China has been found guilty, and all sorts of Chinese companies.
Yep, again and again and again.
Yeah, they steal secrets, they steal trade secrets. Who is going to protect all of the commercial information which companies send using 5G, particularly if they're based outside areas where there's fibre? Who's going to stop Huawei harvesting that for the Chinese government? Who's going to make sure it doesn't happen? Is it going to be down to the individual companies, or are the government going to take some form of responsibility for that?
Well, and what's the relationship between Huawei and the Chinese government? We don't know, do we?
Absolutely. But as you said, that they've already been hauled up in front of Congress. I seem to recall, and I haven't double-checked the details, but I seem to recall one of the US chip manufacturers who are making telecoms equipment subcontracted some of the manufacture to China, and then it all had to be scrapped because they found there'd been extra chips inserted which would harvest the data going through the telecom switches. That says it all. So why,
Roger... you feel strongly about this. I feel strongly about this. Our best allies in the world feel very strongly about this. A lot of very senior members of Boris Johnson's own party feel strongly about this. Why has it happened?
I think Huawei very cleverly recruited very heavily from the civil service and from politics with some very serious salaries into forming the advisory group, which is meant to be monitoring Huawei and what it does. I think the whole thing is a stitch-up, but that's my view.
Roger, thank you for it. I appreciate it. And Downing Street have just said that the Prime Minister has spoken to President Trump this afternoon and updated him on the outcome of the UK's telecoms supply chain review. The PM underlined the importance of like-minded countries working together to diversify the market and break the dominance of a small number of companies. That's what Downing Street say. I wonder what Donald Trump said. Be interesting, won't it? Mike Pompeo the Secretary of State, lands in the UK tomorrow. He's going to be pressed for his response to this. It will be very interesting. Tony says to me, Nigel, chill out. It's a good compromise to keep timelines in and good relationships with Chinese businesses and keep security for core services. Whatever Boris did, everyone would criticise. America will not care, nor will the other Five Eyes community. Tony, goodness gracious me. Let's hope you're right, because if you're wrong, it's a catastrophic mistake. So why take the risk? What's the upside here? Tristram is calling from Shrewsbury. Tristram, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I think we're going to need you again later in this year, because I think we've been badly let down by Boris Johnson, and I'll be plain, I think it stinks. Look, they're talking about protecting crucial and sensitive parts of the network. My personal data, government holds that. That's crucial and sensitive to me. I think the problem with this, I buy the gravy train argument, of course, but the culture in the Home Office and the British Civil Service is liberal use of our personal data. They've been gathering it as much as they possibly can over the years, doing with it not very much that's useful as far as I can see. They simply don't culturally have a problem with the Chinese or Huawei having access to our information. They're just not bothered by it. It doesn't matter to them. And I think, the first thing that we would have hoped to have seen from the Prime Minister was that actually he stands up to the civil service and says, no, this is wrong. But he hasn't.
Two things, Tristram. Number one, are you not convinced by the argument that Huawei will not be in the core but only the periphery?
No. This stuff is so complicated that we just don't know where a switch could be or a bug could be that could tap into the network. We just don't know. I mean, it's invisible. I mean, we just don't need this system.
No. And secondly, do you think this would put at risk the Five Eyes intelligence partnership?
Yes. I mean, we are culturally in the Anglo-American world. We are culturally part of America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. That's where culturally we lie. We don't lie in Europe. We certainly don't lie with the Chinese. And they will start to distrust us.
It makes sense to me. Tristram, thank you for your call. Now, if you think I need to chill out, tell me why. 0345 6060 973. This is Nigel Farage, live from Brussels. It's 6:15. Time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
US officials have expressed disappointment at the UK's decision to allow Huawei access to Britain's 5G infrastructure. President Trump has unveiled a Middle East peace plan, promising to keep Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. 3 people in Germany, Japan and Vietnam are understood to have contracted coronavirus without travelling to China. Wintry showers in the north and west and staying chilly elsewhere, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's very slow on the M25 clockwise from junction 13 for Staines to junction 15 for the M4 after a lorry broke down earlier. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are delays towards junction 23 for the A1M after a car broke down earlier on. On the M20 westbound, there's a lane closed between junction 4 for Leybourne and the M26 at junction 3. That's because of an accident in the roadworks. It's very slow in St John's Wood. St John's Wood Road stays closed in both directions near Lord's Cricket Ground because of an accident. On the trains, there's no London Overground between Barking and South Tottenham after a freight train derailed last week. And Greater Anglia, they have cancellations between Colchester and Liverpool Street after a train broke down earlier on.
This is LBC.
Keep coming. Yeah, bit more.
At Hey Car, you'll find the best used cars all in one place. Every car is quality checked and comes with a warranty. So finding your perfect used car is easy. You just need somewhere to park it.
Back. Whoa. Yeah, great. Stop.
To find your perfect used car, search Hey Car.
LBC.
Standard. Stagnant. Same old. That's not how you describe London. We're, well, different. London loves bright new ideas, embraces vibrant, evolving communities, and isn't afraid of standing out. We deserve an energy company that's as different as we are, one that's fair and affordable for all Londoners. London Power, a different kind of energy company.
Teaching shapes lives. Becoming a teacher means a career of opportunities. You could head a subject department or work towards school leadership. And with a minimum starting salary of £24,000 to £30,000, teaching has never been so rewarding. Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching. Starting salary dependent on location.
Hello? It's time you swapped your daily grind for some sun, sea, and salsa! Sangria! Sun lounger! Siesta! Salsa! The dip. Sandal. Suntan lotion. We've done salsa, ain't we? In the Seychelles, Spain, or anywhere else in the world at surprisingly low prices. When you need a holiday, it's time to Travel Republic. Book with confidence at Toll Protected.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Now you can get average speeds of 63 megabits per second of super-fast fibre broadband for only £20 a month for selected pay monthly customers. Just one of the amazing offers in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or install today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Prices may change. 18-month term subject to credit acceptance and availability. Ends 30th of January. 61% of Superfast 2 customers receive sync speed above 63 megabits per second. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
This is LBC, live from Brussels, The Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Have the government made the right decision in relation to Chinese telecoms giant Huawei? They will be able to provide up to 35% of the new 5G network, the peripheral network. We're told the core will not be touched by them. I'm asking you whether that's the right decision. Ian says, grow up, people. A lot of Huawei kit exists in the current 3 and 4G network. And Ian, that is true. But is the fact that's true a reason to compound that and to keep going with that if there are genuine concerns about security and about our relationship with our closest friends in the world? Peter, on the other hand, says, I really hope this agreement does not seriously damage future trade deals with America and Australia. National security should be our first concern. Did we really need to go into bed with China? We don't even know the relationship Huawei has with the Chinese government. No, and Peter, I keep making that point every single day. If you believe Senator Rick Scott from Florida, Republican, who was on the show with us last night, he says he believes Huawei is a front for the Chinese government. And there's none of us with the knowledge that can contradict that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but we can't contradict it. Brian is a new caller from Bristol. Brian, good evening to you.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. Welcome to the show. How do you feel about this? Does it bother you, or couldn't you care less?
I just think it's everybody getting hyped up again on now we've done our Brexit. This is the latest bit of jingoism that everybody wants to get involved in. I work around telecoms and can basically tell you that the core network is the bit that processes data, and they're not involved in the core network. So it's the same as if you're installing a telephone system in your office and they were providing the wiring. Nobody would be upset about that and suggesting a piece of copper wire could be tapped. So I just think, it's the country needs another foreign enemy to pick on, and this is what happens to be around at the time.
Well, Brian, do you think it's surprising that a Chinese company manages to attract former senior civil servants to its board, former bosses of big companies, and that we have a former prime minister acting as an interlocutor between our government and China. I mean, does that strike you as all being normal and good and reasonable and proper?
Well, I think, in the world in which we now inhabit, where we are, thanks to your efforts, a global trading nation and no longer tied down to our nearest neighbours, then having those sorts of commercial relationships with some of the largest economies in the world, that's what this whole thing's about, isn't that good?
That is a very good point and strong argument and well made. But Australia, and particularly since we turned our backs on them back in 1973, Australia had to try and make its way in the world, and it decided that China was the way to go. And kids in school in Australia, they all learn Mandarin. You go to Melbourne, you see an awful lot of Chinese businesses, Chinese people. It's a very, very close relationship now between Australia and China. And yet even Australia have banned Huawei from their cyber infrastructure. So, Brian, I get the point that we are thinking much bigger and broader than just Europe. Of course we are. But security, surely, if we even...
to make their own decision.
Let me ask you
we
this.
respect the fact that Australia have made their decision, but ourselves as a sovereign nation with our own good patriotic experts in the security services have told us it's safe. So I'm not sure why we would not trust ourselves.
All right. So, fine. So all I'm saying to you is Australia, New Zealand, Canada and Australia all feel incredibly strongly about this. Do you think if people that we know as well as this have these concerns, that they might between them just have a point?
I think that the fact that they feel like that, we should engage with that and recognise it. But I don't think anybody has presented any evidence that there is a risk. There is only a feeling. And if you start to run major procurement decisions in governments based on feelings rather than evidence, then you're heading for a very dark place.
OK, all right. Listen, Brian, you made the point and made it very well. Reid, as a new caller from Stoke. Good evening, Reid. How are you?
How are you, Farage? You all right?
I am fine. Not sure this is the best decision ever, but if you think I'm wrong, you tell me why.
No, I don't think you need to chill out at all. Honestly, with China, it's a communist nation. We know what they do with their own citizens, how they treat them. So why would we trust a data company gathering information on our own citizens? If even America has said it's bad, Canada has said it's bad, New Zealand, Australia, I can't get my head around it. I feel like Boris has let us down all for a promise which he made.
And you think he's let us down in what sense, Reid?
With security, personally, I feel like he's just led the Trojan horse in, because at any time they can, no matter what people have said with how secure it is and all this, like the caller said before, a couple of callers before me, he said anything could happen, a switch, a bug could happen. With China, when it comes to trade and exports, yes, we're on good relations. But when it always comes to our data and stuff, we don't even know what relations we're on with them. We don't have a clue, to be quite honest.
No, so for you, this is a matter of trust, and that trust extends now to Boris Johnson.
Yes, that's right.
And that's an interesting point, because you are calling from one of the parts of the country, that have been Labour forever, and where the Conservatives have started to make gains. And I said a couple of days ago that the red wall areas that have gone for Boris as Prime Minister are intensely patriotic areas, and they would always want national security put first. And you have just articulated that beautifully. Thank you very much indeed for calling us. Anonymous says, let our security services determine whether Huawei can operate. Well, that's just happened. The National Security Council, which is, it's run by the Prime Minister, it's a sort of subcommittee, run from the Cabinet, they've made this decision. But I, Anonymous, whoever you are, I question the genuine independence of this, given the way in which China and Chinese money is influencing former senior civil servants, former big businessmen and women, and even a former Prime Minister. I don't like the look of it. Terry in Portsmouth doesn't either. I'm annoyed with this deal. I'm pleased Brexit's happening, but I'm unhappy that the first deal we've done is with China, directly against the advice of our greatest ally. As an independent country, we need to be more sensible. Our security is more important than ever now. And Terry, I think, perhaps I'm wrong, but I think that pretty much is the common view. Why take the risk? Alex is a new caller from Watford. Good evening.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening. So what do you make of this?
Well, I must just introduce myself. That Alex is a nom de plume. I actually live in China. I speak fluent Chinese. I'm married to a Chinese woman.
Okay.
And I have been running a business in China for 7 years, and I have very, very, very strong feelings, not feelings, but thoughts and observations about the current situation with Huawei. The reason I'm using a nom de plume is because if I didn't, the Chinese Communist Party would be visiting my parents-in-law in Shanghai and interrogating them and possibly casting them off to destinations unknown. So that's by way of introduction. But I must tell you that from a technical point of view, I have no opinion. I'm not an expert on the internet. I suspect neither you or most of your callers. But what it seems to me is the most extraordinary thing is no one in this country, your country, a country that I called home up until 8 years ago, no one is asking about the motivation behind Huawei and how much they are controlled by the CCP. The business that I run in Shanghai, every single member of my Chinese staff is signed up to the Chinese Communist Party. I found out only 4 or 5 years ago that my marketing manager submits regular reports to my activity. I must just say I'm a merchant banker by trade, just like you. She submits regular reports as to, sorry, a currency trader, I forget, submits regular reports as to my activities, who I go out with, where I go, which bars I go to.
Really? So you're spied on?
Completely.
And why do you, Alex, why do you live there then? If it's that awful, why is it just because it's a good job or family? I mean, why do you stay there?
I earn a lot of money, and it suits me for personal reasons. I have a great life. I will be coming back here soon, so that's a different conversation. But what I find extraordinary is, for instance, so my wife is in Shanghai at the moment for Chinese New Year. What I find extraordinary is Sky News, LBC, the BBC, ITN report parrot-like that there are 106 people dead, 2,000 people infected. There's not a single intelligent person in China that's well informed that actually believes this. Every single foreign journalist in China is being shadowed by three or four secret policemen that are directly linked to the CCP. They are being spoon-fed figures. There's no reports of deaths in Shanghai. I happen to know that my wife has had 3 people die in her street. So if the Chinese Communist Party is saying that 100 people are dying, 106, as the latest reports are from via Reuters, it is 3 or 4 times that at least. But going back to Huawei, you are not dealing. It's hilarious to listen to the likes of Sky News, who I usually admire, Adam Bolton, the superb reporter. I've seen him interview you many times. When he says, well, of course, Huawei are obliged to have a legal obligation. There is no rule of law in China. It goes
it's a
like
different
this.
country, different rules.
The day that the Chinese Communist Party decides that they want information from Huawei, it is a single conversation, a raised eyebrow, and if they don't get that information, any information they want, your entire family can be taken away to who knows where. Zhou Yongcan just got taken away. It is exactly the same. There was the Chinese Home Secretary just got taken to essentially life in prison. He was the number 2 to Li Keqiang only 2 years ago. Didn't even reach the foreign media. We think we're dealing with a first world country. We're not.
Alex, or whatever your name is, when Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney says that Johnson has chosen a surveillance state over our special relationship with the USA, you really think she's got a point, don't you?
I do think she's got a point, but I would like to divide this between a technical point of view. I haven't got a clue. I mean, GCHQ, everyone knows smarter than me, you and I, but from
I've admitted that. I've admitted that, but why take the risk? Alex, listen, I've got to go to the news. I'm late. Phenomenal phone call. Fascinating. Gosh, I wouldn't be Alex, whatever they paid me, to be surveilled, and I just wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It is now 32 minutes past 6. Time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The government has defended the decision to give Huawei a limited role in the UK's 5G network. The National Security Council says the Chinese firm, which has been designated a high-risk vendor, will only be allowed to work on peripheral infrastructure. Downing Street says it's finalising plans to fly home UK citizens from the Chinese city at the centre of the coronavirus outbreak. Around 300 British people are believed to be trapped in Wuhan under strict travel conditions. President Trump has proposed the creation of a state of Palestine as part of a long-awaited Middle East peace plan. He's announced the plan alongside the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. LBC weather. Wintry showers in the north and west tonight, staying cold and windy across the UK with some patches of ice, a low of -1.
LBC and its sister stations from Global come together to bring you...
And the winner is...
the Global Awards 2020 with very.co.uk.
Show your appreciation for LBC's Mr. Steve Allen.
With huge performances on the night from the Stereophonics, Alan Jones and Russell Watson. See ticket info, all the nominees, and vote now. Download the Global Player app or vote online at lbc.co.uk. You can be there Thursday the 5th of March, London's Hammersmith Eventim Apollo, the Global Awards 2020.
With very.co.uk. Get more out of every day.
LBC.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer.
And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
This is the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry he wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time he hops on a bus. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Now you can get average speeds of 63 megabits per second of superfast fibre broadband for only £20 a month for selected pay monthly customers. Just one of the amazing offers in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or in store today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Prices may change. 18-month term subject to credit acceptance and availability. Ends 30th of January. 61% of Superfast 2 customers receive sync speed above 63 megabits per second. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
To stay ahead of the competition, you need to know when to invest in your business, which is why now is the perfect time for you to take advantage of the Renault Pro Plus New for Old van scheme. Get £6,500 off the list price on the new Renault Traffic, tailored to your business when you trade in your existing van, so you get the upgrade you need to keep your business out in front. Let's invest in you. Search Renault Vans or visit your local dealer today. Order by 31st of March and register by 30th September. Business users only. Participating dealers only. For T's and C's, visit renault.co.uk/van offers.
Attention, please. We at HealthSpan would like to tell you something that, quite possibly, you didn't already know. Not all supplements are created equal. I know. Who'd have thought? We travel the entire globe to find the best ingredients for our vitamins and supplements. From the southern slopes of India for our turmeric to the cold, crisp seas of Greenland for our cod liver oil. Because that's the HealthSpan way. Well, there you go. It's not every day you learn something new, is it? We're HealthSpan. That's healthspan.co.uk. Vitamins and supplements. In-store or direct to your door.
We live in an age where you can stream any box set instantly. But staying on top of our pensions is anything but instant. PensionBee can transfer most old pensions together into one simple online plan, so you can manage your pension on your smartphone as simply as streaming that box set. Download the app or visit pensionbee.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels, only on LBC.
Well, the government have made their decision about the 5G network, and Huawei will be able to have up to 35% or provide that much of what they're saying is the non-core infrastructure, but quite how you define the difference between one and the other, I am not sure, and there appears to be some doubt over it. But one area where policy's not yet sorted out, but is jolly well going to need to be, is the topic of immigration. Don't forget, it was a key issue in the referendum, and it made a big difference, I think, to the vote for the Conservative Party in the general election. Boris talking about taking back control of our borders. And when people hear that, they think what it means is numbers are going to go down. There's been a lot of talk about the £30,000 salary cap for those coming into the country from outside the EU, hints that the government are actually going to get rid of it. And today, the Migration Advisory Committee have published a report, and they say the minimum salary threshold should be £25,600, because that would help people coming in to get jobs in the NHS. And for those outside of that, who are coming in without a specific job, their skills should be judged through an Australian-style point system. Well, Migration Watch have always criticised successive governments for not getting a grip on immigration. And I wonder, Benjamin Locklane, researcher at Migration Watch, the Migration Advisory Committee, are they aiming with their proposals to increase or decrease the numbers that come into this country?
Good evening. It seems to puzzle me slightly, because we hear all this talk from Boris during the election campaign, where he was asked directly, yes, will immigration be higher or lower? And he very pointedly says lower, very emphatically. And then we get these things coming out saying that it's going to rise, and by all measures it probably will rise, especially if you're lowering the salary threshold, from 30,000 down to 4,500 less. That brings in probably hundreds of thousands of people into eligibility in sort of one fell swoop. So I fail to see how, with these sorts of policy manoeuvres, we're going to get the numbers down as promised.
You're not suggesting, are you, Benjamin, that Boris Johnson said these things just to get votes and didn't really mean it? Surely not.
Well, I wouldn't suggest that, but I will say that if he's serious about getting the numbers down, he needs to change tack very quickly, because the current approach is clearly not working. And as we've seen over the past 10 years, we've had a Conservative government which has simply sustained the levels that we first saw under Blair. I mean, Blair, when he came in, I think it was in 2 years, the numbers tripled. And we're very much running the risk of seeing Boris Johnson carrying on that legacy. And I, for the life of me, I can't understand why a Conservative government would want to commit themselves to, bearing the torch of the Blairite years.
Well, Benjamin, I've discussed this with your boss, Lord Green, many a time, and as he's often said to me, Australian-style point system sounds fantastic, but of course you can use it to increase or decrease numbers. Benjamin, thank you very much for joining us. And, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because I sense myself that the decision today on Huawei shows a continuation of business as usual. The kind of government Tony Blair set up that was copied very much by Gordon Brown, and of course by David Cameron and by Theresa May. And what Boris Johnson is really saying today is we're going to go on as we were. And that sounds to me like it may well apply to immigration. Gosh, he's at risk of letting down and upsetting a lot of people, it seems to me. Jacob on YouTube says, and that's not Rees-Mogg, I'm sure, it's a ridiculous decision by the government. I'm a Tory, and I'm strongly against this decision. The people's government is putting the people at risk. Nigel says on YouTube, even at the periphery of the network, the Chinese equipment could be designed to damage the network. Chris in Kent by text is more relaxed and says, devil's advocate here, what's the worst that could happen if they did spy on us? Well, the worst that could happen, Chris, is they could take from us intelligence information, they could take from us business information, scientific information, and they could build up a profile on virtually every single one of us in this country. Now, you may say, I don't care, the Chinese can have my data, but who's to say what they might do with it? And I did think that the caller that we had before the break, who'd rung in, a businessman who'd rung in under an anonymous name and obviously routed his call through the UK, but, living in Shanghai, operating in Shanghai, making it clear he's there because he makes a lot of dough being there, but his own staff spy on him and tell government authorities where he's going and what he's doing. I mean, it is a really unpleasant surveillance state. It is not a nice place, and I don't think on an issue like this we can trust them. Jeff is a new caller from Henley. Jeff, good evening.
Good evening to you, Nigel. I'd just like to make a few points. Firstly, congratulations to you having your last day as an MEP.
I'm so excited about it, Jeff.
I can imagine, and you've done a great job actually braving the trail over 27 years, I think it is. And you've done us a great service in actually making sure it happens. So hats off to you for that. Secondly, I think Boris has actually shown that he's not the Donald Trump Me Too, mini-me, and he's actually standing up to the president and saying, no, we will plough our own furrow, and it might rankle a bit with you, but on behalf of the British people, I'm actually making a decision, and I think congratulations for that. I think we are very oppressive towards the Chinese. I have been travelling backward and forward there for 15 years and doing business there for 15 years, and I've seen them actually come a long way in terms of respecting now copyright, actually respecting the rights of other people as far as intellectual property is concerned. And I don't think that the fear that we have and all that we hear about human rights is actually quite true. And I think as far as social compliance is concerned throughout China, they're actually coming a long way. And I think this fear about security, I think if a 17-year-old kid in Somerset can actually tap into the Pentagon, I think if people wanted to spy on us, whether or not we have a business arrangement with them or not, they would actually be more than capable of doing it if they so wish.
But Jeff, that's not an argument, is it? Just to say, oh, well, let's not bother because anybody could do it. That's not an argument. I mean, Jeff, you say that he stood up to Donald Trump. And, of course, there are times when British prime ministers should stand up to American presidents. A very famous precedent, I guess, being Harold Wilson, telling Lyndon Johnson, we are not going into the Vietnam War. And what a good decision that turned out to be. But, Jeff, it isn't just Donald Trump here. We're talking about the Australians, the Canadians, the New Zealanders. I don't know whether you listened to my caller just before 6:30, calling in from Shanghai, saying the extent to which he feels as a businessman he's surveilled in China. What's the upside of doing this, Jeff?
I think the upside is that President Xi will actually look on Boris and be very open, thinking that we are, again, open to do business with them. They are a massive force globally in all respects, and they're going to get even bigger and greater. So I think a good relationship with China will actually stand us in good stead in the future. And I think this is properly a building brick towards that. And therefore, I'm not fearsome of it at all. I think it's well done.
All right. No, Jeff, you've made the point very clearly. I don't really agree with it, but you've made it very, very clearly. I just would say this to you, Jeff, in response, that the Australians have sought a very close business and investment relationship with China, and even they didn't want them to access their phone networks. But hey, Jeff, great call. Thank you. Lots of great calls on this. And I think it is a very important subject. The government have made their decision. This is Nigel Farage on LBC at 6:45. Time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
In the last few minutes, the Foreign Office has advised against all but essential travel to mainland China amid the coronavirus outbreak. Senior Tories have said it beggars belief the government has opted to allow Huawei a role in the UK's 5G network. Donald Trump says his Middle East peace plan is a win-win opportunity for Israel and Palestine. Wintry showers in the north and west and staying chilly elsewhere, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M40 southbound because of an investigation just before Junction 4 for High Wycombe. On the M25 clockwise, there are queues from Junction 23 for the A1M to Junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier on. It's heavy on the M20 eastbound. A van's broken down in the roadworks between Junction 3 for the M26 and Junction 4 for Leybourne. There are delays in St John's Wood. St John's Wood Road stays closed in both directions near Lord's Cricket Ground because of an accident. On the A40 going into town, there are queues from the Denham roundabout to the Swakeleys roundabout after an accident earlier. And on the trains, London Overground have no service between Hackney Downs and Chingford. That's because a train has broken down.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8, we'll be asking you whether you think the government decision on Huawei is the right one. And at 9, Donald Trump's peace plan for the Middle East. Can it work?
Ian Dale on LBC.
London's air pollution affects every borough and everyone's health, especially children. The main cause? Road transport. The Mayor and TfL are working to clean up London's buses and taxis, but there are things we can all do as well. By swapping just one car trip every week for walking, cycling or public transport, we can help make London's air cleaner together for everyone. See how the Mayor and TfL are working towards cleaner air. Sign up to do your bit and swap that trip at lbc.co.uk.
This is the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry he wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time he hops on a bus. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account.
Hello? It's time you swapped your daily grind for some sun, sea, and salsa! Sangria! Sun lounger! Siesta! Salsa! The dip! Sandals! Suntan lotion! We've done salsa, ain't we? In the Seychelles, Spain, or anywhere else in the world at surprisingly low prices. When you need a holiday, it's time to Travel Republic. Book with confidence at Toll Protected.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 14 million. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £14 million.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Many people find their memory changes as they age. For most, it's a natural part of aging. For some, however, it could be an indication of something more serious. For some, it could be Alzheimer's disease. St Pancras Clinical Research is conducting a trial of an investigational drug for early-stage Alzheimer's. If you are between the ages of 50 and 90, have a study partner and would like more information, please contact St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com to hear more about this study.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
The real reason Sleeping Beauty fell asleep was because it was taking so long for the palace to sell, and the handsome prince needed the proceeds to buy their new home with no time to dwell.
I know who can help. Property Rescue. I'll contact them straight away.
So he spoke to their friendly team who took care of every detail. They bought the palace direct with no legal fees to pay. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to solve.
This is LBC, live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag FarageOnLBC.
And the breaking news is that the Foreign Office is advising UK citizens not to travel to mainland China at all. Does that suggest the coronavirus situation is even worse than we know? Are the Chinese government giving us the full picture? We had a caller from Shanghai earlier saying that he thought they were underplaying the numbers seriously. I don't know the answer to that, but if the Foreign Office are saying that, they must be getting pretty concerned, it seems to me. Back to Boris Johnson's decision, the National Security Council's decision that Huawei will be involved with the 5G network. Mark from Stenning has the answer. He says Boris had to go for a limited deal with China, but the US and UK could develop 6G so we could have our own tech business and kick them out. Well, maybe, Mark, but, for the moment, we've made this decision, and a lot of people are unhappy about it. A lot of people don't get it. What is the upside, other than for those in the British establishment for whom China is a way, particularly when they've retired from their day jobs, to make money? Paul is a new caller from Lincoln. Paul, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So, is it nothing to worry about, or is it a really bad decision?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's anything to worry about from a perspective of the technical side. That's something that I think that a lot of people don't really understand. But for me, I look at vested interest and trade. So from a perspective of vested interest, are the Americans, are the New Zealanders, the Australians, the Canadians trying to sell us anything in their stead? Or are they trying to give us good advice?
No.
You know, they're trying to give us good advice, you know? So for me, you know, let's listen to that. And then are we doing this to cement any trade with China? Well, as far as I can see, we've got quite a large deficit with China. So, you know, we're not even actually getting anything in return for it. So from a vested interest perspective and from a trade perspective, I really do think it's a very, very poor decision, regardless of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when Donald Trump criticises Germany for buying stacks and stacks of Russian gas, you know, you can understand strategically why he says it, but you also know he'd quite like to sell them American gas, all right? You know that's what's going on, and that's how the world works, and we know that. But in this particular case, none of those four countries are seeking to sell us a bean. They are trying to give us what they think is good advice, and we've decided to ignore them.
Absolutely,
I just don't get it.
They're not doing it to feather their own nests. They're actually doing it to try and give us a bit of advice, a bit of help. Look, we work with you guys. You know, are you making the right decision? And I think Boris really needs to get his head on his shoulders. You know, I can see all sorts of things coming. He's got other big decisions to make with HS2 and with fish and all sorts of stuff. Paul, and he really needs to get a grip.
I tell you what, Paul, my money right now with the HS2 decision is on it continuing, because it seems to me this is now looking like a continuity government and not a radical one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nigel, and I fear, I've actually written to my MP and sort of said, we've really got to start being strong. We've got to look after the people of this country from a perspective of security, from a perspective of trade, and really from a perspective of looking after our natural resources. I mean, for heaven's sake, we don't ask the Germans for their coal, do we, or the French for their wine. Their natural resources they have as a result of their geographical position. You know, so why ask us for our fish?
Yeah,
we really got to.
We're an island. People. Yeah.
You know,
we're an island,
and
we want our fish back. No, Paul, I'm with it, and this is what voters want. One of the reasons that the Red Wall fell the way that it did is people did not see Corbyn and Labour as patriotic and standing up for the national interest, and they thought Boris would, and they hope he still will. Paul, I thank you. Gary says, I'm a Labour Party member, also a Momentum member. I wanted a left-wing Brexit, and even I don't want Huawei anywhere near this country. What the Tories haven't thought through properly is the propaganda that will result from this deal. Our relationship with the USA will never be the same again. Oh, Gary, I hope you're wrong, but I fear this has not done us much good, and we're going to find out more because, as I said, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo lands in London tomorrow. Today, the President has been busy with Benjamin Netanyahu talking about his proposed peace deal for the Middle East, and he's not been focusing on this. But, you know, there is no question that Mike Pompeo will tell us what he really thinks and what the implications of this are for a future trade deal with the USA and for our intelligence sharing. And you know, they haven't absolutely said to us, do this and we won't. But clearly, and one of the reasons that we had Senator Scott on last night, he was so keen to talk to us, is they really think this is the wrong thing to do. Let's go to Tarek, who's a new caller from Kilburn. Good evening to you.
How you doing, Nigel? All right?
Hello, I'm fine. Right. So, should we be chilled and laid back, or should we be upset and angry?
100%. 100%. Listen, man, technology in the world now, it's too much advanced, okay? Whoever wants to spy on you has been spying on you since World War I. Okay, they don't need Huawei, or they don't need a 3G or 5G or 10G. Okay, they're already spying on you. You're already spying on them. It's vice versa. It's working. They don't need to come in and offer you a 5G network so they can spy on you. It does not make sense. We're in 2020. You know?
Yes, and yes, and there's been lots of look. There's been lots of data theft, and I completely get that. And yes, to an extent,
not just data theft. Man, listen, people, they computer hackers, they can spy on you from your computer camera while your computer's switched off. You know, they don't need a 5G to to spy on you. They don't need, everything is so small now through technology. You don't need
Look, Tarek, I do share those concerns, but that doesn't mean we should make it easier, does it, for anybody?
But it's not gonna make it any difference whether if we go full deal or half deal. Everything, the country right now needs any type of business deal to stand on its feet.
If this business deal, all right, Tarek.
Sorry,
Tarek, let me ask you a quick question, right? If this business deal with Huawei threatens a trade deal with the United States of America, will it have been worth doing?
Yeah, of course. Listen, man, America's looking after its own interests. We might as well look after our own too, man.
What maybe a trade deal with the USA would be in our interests, Tarek.
Well, if it's our trade deal should be in a different circle with the US than the rest of the world, okay? Like as if with China, as if with everybody. Now we're independent. We're outside Europe. The European Union. We have the right, and we reserve the right to have any type of trade deal with anybody else in the world, as we like.
Absolutely. Yes, and you could argue that close relationships with China like this are important for us because we're going global. I get that. You're the second caller that's made that point, and it's a strong point, and I thank you very much for it. Tarek, thank you, all of you. And I had a lot of calls tonight that I didn't agree with, but they were argued and put extremely well. Nigel, you wanted us to leave the EU. You want us to do global business. What's wrong with doing business with China? Well, that's absolutely fine if it's motor cars or whatever, although I wouldn't mind a deficit being a bit less than it is. But when it comes to security, it should not be compromised. When it comes to upsetting our friends, I don't think that's a very bright thing to do. Right, I'll be back here tomorrow in Brussels. I will by then have given my last ever speech in the European Parliament. I'll have voted on the UK leaving the European Union, and I'll be having my bags packed and ready to go home. Until then, tonight at 10, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Coming up on the show tonight, basically it's rather a big news day today. Donald Trump has presented his long-awaited Middle East peace plan proposals this afternoon, promising to keep Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. The Palestinians have denounced it. Is it already dead? We'll be asking that question to you at 8. Want to hear from both sides of the argument on that. We're also going to be asking you about whether you think the government is right to let Huawei be part of our 5G rollout. That'll be at 9. Plus, in the news hour, we'll get the latest on the coronavirus. More news on Prince Andrew and the Jeffrey Epstein inquiry. And we'll have the latest from the Grenfell inquiry and the Paris protests.
On your radio, on Global Player, and